Hi everyone, Acesup here. Thank you for joining me taking a starting bankroll of $2,000 and building it up to $42,000 in 2 months. To help us complete this challenge, it's important to have a good poker setup. This is the setup that I'll be using. I guess it starts, of course, with the PC. You want to make sure your PC is up to the task of being able to run multiple poker platforms, and if you also are using software, which I will be, Poker Tracker, which will allow me to display stats that I've accumulated over time on my opponents in real time so I can make better decisions. To use a statistical package like that, a HUD and that sort of thing, or shortcuts like Table Ninja, Stack and Tile, all of this uses up resources. So hopefully my old faithful behind me will be up to the challenge. Now, as it is with the actual playing and being able to see the tables, I like to have a lot of space so that I can tile my tables just like this. And so I usually have the 6 tables per display. I'm using the Dell 30-inch displays. This gives me a lot of desktop room so that I can have some recording, software that I use for recording and that sort of thing. I can check on that. If I want some music or iTunes or something open. Also, if I need some lobbies open, because it might be in the bubble, so I want to check the lobby of the tournament. This really gives me a lot of space to do everything that I need to do. You might think that, well, moving a table from here to here, I mean, that's a long way. You've got a lot of screen to get through. But if you can see my mouse moving just down here, that's all it is just this movement. It's not really a big movement. So the trick is to turn, whether you're using a Mac or I'm using Windows, turn your mouse sensitivity up to the maximum setting so that just a little movement means that your cursor moves a long way. Does take a little bit of getting used to, especially when you combine that with using this mouse. I highly recommend it though. This is the 3M mouse. It's ergonomically designed, and I've heard it described as it's like shaking someone's hand. So you imagine this motion, it's very natural for the arm to be in this position. But the mouse that we would normally use is kind of like this, right? This is very unnatural for the arm to be in this position. Also, it requires a lot of wrist movement, whereas this one is actually more kind of whole arm movement. Before, when I used to use a normal mouse, this is more of a joystick style, really, isn't it? But the old mouse that I had was a traditional type, and I had a lot of pain in my arm. So since I got this mouse, not a problem. Also used to get a little bit of sort of eye strain or sort of tired eyes and that sort of thing, dry eyes. So I got these glasses. These are Gunners, from Gunners Eyewear, and again, when you first put them on, everything looks a bit yellow, but then after a while, if you use them often enough, when you take them off, everything looks a bit strange because it looks too white. But yeah, I do recommend these glasses as well. I haven't had any problems with my eyes since I picked these up. I mean, we're playing sometimes when it comes to MTTs, doing really long sessions. I mean, we might sneak in the odd 16-hour monster session, and so we need to be well prepared. So along with the display and the mouse, the glasses, I also have my high back chair. Also, it's good for posture. I've also got a leg rest so I can put my feet up and just get comfortable. That's what it's really all about. Just being able to have a setup that allows you to play efficiently and hopefully make optimal decisions. And so, that being said, I think it's time to try to do just that. And I have, of course, the important. That's right. This is actually not a coffee. It's actually a matcha latte. So that's ready. And of course, I forgot to mention the most important thing with any poker setup, and that, of course, is the elbow protectors. And these are the ones that I use. I've got my bear here, and of course I've got the rabbit, the pink rabbit one here, and these just give me that little bit of extra comfort that you need to just zone in and play good poker. Let's get into it. Looking forward to this review, guys. Now, I say review because this is a post commentary, as opposed to the real-time commentary that I do in all of the videos except for the first two. Now, the reason why I've done it that way is just so that we can talk about some more sort of general stuff relating to the challenge. In between hands, of course, and we do have a hand bottom right. It's a $20 3K guaranteed rebuy and add-on, and we've got a very short M1 stack all in on the button. We have King 9 suited in the small blind, and so in this situation, in my mind, it's a very clear isolation all in, because the player on the button is likely to be quite desperate and moving all in with a wide range, as he should be. And the big blind is so short that, well, we would have been jamming all in on the big blind anyway had it folded to us. So essentially all this all in from the button has done is sweeten the pot for us, but we've actually, oh, diamonds, get there, 7, nope. So we were unfortunate to run into the aces there, but I do think that's the best play. And I don't know why it took so long to make that play. But just between you and I, it does take a little while for me to get my engines going this series. And so I don't, no spoilers. If you've started at number 1 and you're tuning in, there's no spoilers. But I do just want to, well, we've got the ace king now, so that's looking like, well, cancel that. 7 on the turn. 7 from heaven. Wasn't from heaven this time, it was straight from hell. And it's just busted us out of that tournament, unfortunately. I've got to say, though, I'm liking this. I can just, not the bust out, but just the watching and the commentating. Because normally I'm playing and commentating at the same time, and it's actually not as easy as you might think. So it does take a lot of brain resources to be playing a whole bunch of tables and commentating on your thoughts on the central tables as well. And that's essentially what you see is just my middle display. I try not to have too many tables. At times you will see 6 throughout the series, other times 4. Of course, I hope sometimes you only see 1 or 2, because that probably means it's a final table. And there will be a lot of final tables, and we actually have a final table right now, don't we? On the bottom left here. It's a $25 1.5K guaranteed. Now, anytime you want to check what a tournament is, if you can see that on the just along the top of the box of the listen to me, I'm talking like I'm completely computer illiterate. Just along the top of the tournament window, you can see the buy-in and the guaranteed and so forth of all the tournaments. So we've got the Pocky 9s top left, and I've bumped it up. I probably could have gone a little bit bigger there with the raise. I think players don't really like limp folding, and I'm saying that treating this player as probably a weak opponent, because that's a $5 rebuy tournament. He's probably just a low buy-in guy that's going to limp call with like King 2 suited and Queen 8 and stuff. He's doing that because he just likes to see flops more than anything, I would guess. Not as a pro might do it. You know, a lot of pros these days have started limping small blinds. Not a lot, but a decent percentage have started limping small blinds as part of a strategy. But this is clearly, well, not clearly, but I would say not part of a strategy. It's just this guy wanting to see flops and try and bink something. So he's check called flop, and I've checked back turn, which I think is probably okay. But I think betting is okay as well. And I just don't see any way we can fold now, because in this type of situation, these guys can turn over some interesting hands. Okay, so he's check called the flop out of position with the old 9 high there. And then they hit a pair, so I guess he's value betting turn, which is probably fair enough. I don't mind his turn value bet. It's on the thinnish side, but I'm all for thin value. And on that topic, I really wanted to say that I believe one mistake that I make from the get-go is not value betting thin enough. And the second mistake that I make is I generally tend to overestimate my opponent's capabilities. And I I think in that sort of instance where the guy rolls a 7-9, I mean, he's just check called with 9 high. I mean, okay, he's got a backdoor straight, backdoor flush. Maybe sometimes he can buy it on later streets, but you see it a lot. You know, it's not like once in a while I might float out of position. These guys are going to be doing it a lot. They're going to be calling down too light, making those essential mistakes that beginners or lower buy-in players make, and that is to, who knows? You're going to hear it a lot. They bluff too frequently, and they call down too frequently with marginal hands. So two big mistakes that recreational players make is they just sort of, often in certain spots, they have way too many bluffs, and at other times they just call down too light when they should be able to fold and escape. And both of them are really just, it just comes down to hand reading and just really lack of, obviously, I mean, they're low buy-in players, and often recreational or new players and so forth. And no offense to any of the recreational players out there. You're not recreational. If you're listening to this, you're not recreational. You're semi-professional. So clearly not, you know, going to be doing anything fishy, right? Right? King's bottom right there. Anytime you want to see the tournament, you can look at the tournament window along the top bar. So, for example, on the PokerStars one now, we can see, and if you're on a mobile, then it might be a little bit hard, but it's an $11 2 rebuy 1 add-on bottom right. And it's the $66 5K guaranteed top right, the Cyclone as they call it. And I hope this series is good for you guys that want to improve your multi-tabling, because it is going to be, at times, there's going to be, you know, multiple hands going on. And hopefully my commentary is okay. It's in time with the hand that you're watching for the most part. Because sometimes it gets a little bit tricky when you're still talking about a hand and there's a new hand popping up and that sort of thing. All the fun and games of making these videos. But at the end of the day, I enjoy doing this, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this series. And I'm enjoying this Ace-King isolation, top left. I think that, again, we've got our friend who limped before. Now, I don't really mind his play limp calling with a 7-9 suited. I must add that in. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a fishy play by any means. And we don't even, maybe this guy's a good player. And we just don't know yet. We don't have enough hands on him. Now, it's very interesting that he's donk led here. I actually quite like that bet. I think if I had a big pair, I would actually still call. I think that I should have floated there, rather than just give up. I think. But it's not bad. I kept it simple. And that's something that I try to do a lot in these early, especially session 1. Session 1, I'm a little bit too careful. And I think that's because I was sort of all of a sudden playing a bunch of tables at low buy-ins, which I hadn't done for a while and hadn't been recording. I hadn't even been playing much, like I said. And all of a sudden trying to make a lot of decisions quickly and work out what my opponents were doing. And I generally, I think I'm, in general, a little bit too cautious. A little bit, but you know, that's not too bad, because at the lower buy-ins, and when I say lower buy-ins, I'm really talking about anything sort of, you know, anything sub 33. Even the 55s, but more so 33 down is when you start seeing some, how would you describe it? Just, some interesting, let's just say some interesting plays and weird playing styles. So we've got around M 16.5 bottom left. A pretty good position to be in, really. Nice stack size. And coming third, it looks like, in that tournament. So obviously a good start to the session. Good start to the challenge. If we can start, I do actually make a few final tables this first session, so I did get off to quite a good start. But that kind of well, no spoilers. I don't want to say anything. So top left, I think just checking back behind is an okay option against this guy. He has donk-led pot, so I think in that case calling is probably best. I think betting or checking on the turn, but probably checking is the best. And I don't really see any way we can fold river. And he's shown us the jack-8. And you can see that I actually snapped his face off, so it was a very fast call. That's what I mean when I, of course, say snap call. And that's just because he's giving the impression of being a bit of a fish. And yeah, I mean, his river bet didn't really make any sense, the sizing. I mean, he bet over pot, so it was a pretty easy call. I would have been more alarmed if he had a bet a bit smaller, but the thing about that bet is it doesn't really make a lot of sense from his point of view. I mean, if he's thinking about the hand, it doesn't make sense, because why is he betting that big? Because we're probably not going to fold a pair on that board because the ace repeated. So our hand, if we held a pair in our hand, it kind of, aces and whatever pair we have, kind of doesn't look too bad in a heads-up confrontation, right? So why not just bet small and try and fold out the times that we missed out, you know, all the straight draws that were out there would have been, I think, smarter. Just bet smallish, because if we've, that's what you would call an inelastic range. I mean, we're calling from a small bet to a big bet, to a huge bet with any, you know, the queen and the next pair down, we're probably still calling. So it doesn't make sense to bet big when someone has an inelastic range. It's best just to bet small, try and fold out the missed draws and the weaker hands. So bottom left, obviously a big flop and a bet, and our opponent just folds. And we're really well stacked top left as well, aren't we? And that is a tournament that's going to be quite an interesting one. And even though I think, as I mentioned, the start of the series, it takes me a while to hit my stride or get in the zone, you might say. I think that this first part is really interesting just because of the dynamics, because we've got such a variety of players, and you know, we've got more multi-way pots and a lot of limping. There's going to be a lot of limping happening and things like that, and that's always exciting, isn't it? When you get the family pots and everyone limping in and trying to see a flop, rather than at the higher stakes where it's just like, you know, raise, 3-bet, 4-bet, fold. So that sort of thing. So yeah, it's always fun. I wanted something that I wanted to. Part of the reason that I'm doing this commentary this way is a few things I wanted to talk about. One of them is that, I mean, this is every day I'm playing and recording. Some days I'm a bit tired or you know, a bit drained and hungry. You know, I've got to eat and that sort of thing. Sometimes these sessions go for many, many hours. So what you're really watching now, and what this series, part of what this series is, obviously there's going to be a ton of strategy, but I'm present it in a more relaxed way than you would have seen if you've seen some of my other strategy videos. So I just wanted to let you guys know that up front, that was the case. Because, you know, you might hear the odd munching and, you know, who knows what going on. But that's just part of this series, is that it's not a finely polished and refined strategy video that you may have seen, as is the case with some of my other videos where I have scripts and that sort of thing. Obviously, this one, that's not really possible. Just the fact that it's in real time. And interesting hand here, top left. I quite like my just flat here, because it does open the door for this sort of thing to happen where someone jams behind, and we could find ourselves in good shape, or at least in a good position to win a very big pot. And I think just jamming now is the best, to be honest. Oh my god, don't fold, please. Only because the guy that Min raised initially is, from what we've seen, quite fishy. 4, 5, 6, 7, and M9 is the jam. I mean, it's certainly not a clear play, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's close, because the guy that has jammed all in, from what we can see, is quite tight. And he is M9, and he's against early position players. But I just still think he's capable of rolling Ace-Queen and Ace-Jack. And the initial, the guy that, well, I mean, the guy did snap, you know, the Queen's guy did snap the all-in M9. So, I mean, it's certainly close. But now at the same time, I think that our hand is just way too under-repped, because we've only just flattered a raise. And the guy is, as we've seen, you know, I think that Jack-8 hand before was a bit spewy, so he seems a bit spewy. Don't really like my play there. But I do think that that is how I play for this sort of first part, is to be more careful. Now, having said that, some of you might love it. Some of you might go, well, Ace-King, you're probably going to flip all the time. You know, you could be crushed. Do you really want to, you've got such a big stack, do you really want to risk such a big portion when we have such a big edge over the field? But I think I do, is the short answer. I think I do. So, yeah, I mean, you just got to get in there, don't you? I mean, it's tournaments. It's MTTs. It's a crazy race to the finish. You know, it really, you're going to hear me say that a lot as well. There's a few things you're going to hear over and over. And hopefully it's helps just to reinforce a few things. But tournaments really are, I mean, so many situations you get deep and then lose your coolers, or you just get a bad beat and that sort of thing, and that's the end of it. You got to control your own destiny, and at times you got to try and you just take a stand and win a big pot. And I think that Ace-King was the opportunity to do that. And other times you just got to get aggressive and try and find ways to pick up dead money. And they're two things that are tricky parts, you know, because it can be a fine line between getting aggressive and just being a spew monkey. And hopefully we'll see more of the former and less of the latter this series. Having already sort of played some sessions and watching this now, it is, I must say, quite interesting to sort of look at this as a review and just sort of think about how I was playing at the start of the series as opposed to as I get a little bit deeper into the series. And I do think that poker as a skill game is something that you can just lose touch with if you haven't been playing for a while. Bottom right, easy call, and easy hold, no. And so I think if you take a break for a while, you do sort of, especially some of the finer, how would you say, some of the more difficult situations, I think you sort of might be more prone to making mistakes. They might not be big mistakes, they might only be small mistakes, but I think that I know for me personally, if I take sort of more than a couple of weeks break, I'm likely to not be sharp when I play my next session. Having said that, it's still good to take some breaks, and sometimes you get a little bit of a new perspective or just feel really fresh. And that's how I was feeling when I started this session. This series and this session was very fresh, which is great. Because it's always, I mean, obviously, we're planning to play almost every day for 2 months. That's staying fresh is going to be important. And it's hard to do, though, but I was feeling, I mean, I am, and I was feeling good, so it's important. So I think top left here with the 4-6, probably not really too much to do. We do have a bottom end, the ignorant end of the straight, the gut shot, and obviously heavy action. You know, bottom right is, I don't even mind a 3-bet there, because this player is opening from early position 25%, middle 30%, and button 59% in this bottom right $11 2 rebuy 1 add-on. I had the 7-8, it's a pretty marginal, but I really don't mind too much putting pressure on there, because we're really essentially just attacking a fairly wide range. We've got 403 hands on him too, so it's not like, I mean, the data is starting to become quite meaningful. And that is, looks like he's, I'm talking about this guy that's thinking now, of course, with the Iron Man mask. He seems to be on the loose side, so, you know, he also folds to 3-bets 57%. But, I mean, you would expect a fairly high fold to 3-bet if he's raising that often. You know, otherwise he's just a fish. And you can't just be raising a lot and calling a lot, because you'll just be too often crushed. So it's definitely good to be stealing a lot, but he's still going to have to fold to some 3-bets, and he seems like he does that. But that means he's a good opponent for us to attack, and that's important, is that you sort of have your eye on and sort of plan who are the weak links if you can, ideally. It's hard when you're multi-tabling, but it's always good to be sort of aware. So bottom left, I've raised with the ace-10 from second position and the big blind's defended. We have, well, an over and a backdoor straight. It's a pretty bad board, but against a big blind who's likely to be defending with a pretty wide range, I think betting is good. The problem with checking is that too often when you check flop, opponents will auto-bet turn, and it's very hard for us to call turn. You know, maybe a repeat jack or 9 we can, but any sort of, you know, king. Well, I guess a queen and the 8 gives us an up and down, but there's just not enough good cards for us. You know, if it comes a 5 on the turn and our opponent had a fired, I mean, I would have just given it up. So betting flop just prevents that from happening, keeps the hand clean. You know, we sort of find out where we're at, I guess, if he's got anything, really. Get some information. Most of the time he folds. But even if they're not folding most of the time when you c-bet, it's all about designing your c-bet so it's profitable. And we can see here, top left, I've gone for the just under half pot. And we've picked up a really good turn card here, haven't we? Where we've got still the 1 over with the queen and the flush draw as well. I actually like a jam here because there's already so much out there. There's 43k out there. And his donk bet is not really that convincing. He might be doing it just as a bit of a fishy play. And so I can see that I have jammed, and we obviously run into a hand that I feel is, well, it's obviously high up in his range. I don't actually really like his play too much on the turn. I think he's actually better off checking, because the king is a card that we might barrel a lot on as a scare card. This is a good situation bottom left, isn't it? Obviously, there's a ton of chips already out there, dead money. And we've got the ladies.